At the sources, what jumps out right away is how this story just plunges you straight into, well, frankly, a nightmare scenario. It starts with someone whose entire life, for such a long time, has been just completely defined by suffering.
It really does. The source material doesn't pull any punches. It gives us this really vivid, almost painful picture of her physical state. It talks about a woman who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years.
12 years?
Yeah, 12 years. And that number, it can sound a bit abstract, can it? But just try to imagine that. I mean, that's more than a decade. Think about it maybe from childhood, like age 4 to 16, knowing nothing else. Or maybe it hit her later, consuming the prime years of her life. It wasn't like a minor issue. It was constant, a chronic, debilitating condition, a reminder every single day.
Right.
Think about the toll that takes on your energy, your ability to function, family life, your mental state, day after day for 12 relentless years.
And it wasn't like things were stable or maybe even improving slightly. The sources mention her medical journey, right?
That's a crucial point. It explicitly says she had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors. Yet instead of getting better, she grew worse.
So all that effort, all that hope put into doctors actually made things worse.
Exactly. And doctors back then, well, that could mean anything from actual physicians to folk healers, maybe even people just taking advantage. The point is, she tried everything available, everything conventional. She must have spent all her money, maybe her family's money, gone into debt perhaps, just desperate for a cure.
Yeah.
And the result, not just no improvement, but actively getting worse. It speaks to this profound sense of, well, hopelessness, doesn't it?
Total dead end.
A total dead end. When every single human effort, every expert she could find had failed, it just highlights the absolute inadequacy of any earthly solution for her specific problem.
And then there's the other layer, which is maybe even harder to grasp today. The physical pain was immense, obviously, but it also led to this crushing social isolation. The sources use words like rejected, isolated, but it was more than just being sick, wasn't it? She was labeled unclean.
Right, and that word unclean carried enormous weight in that culture.
What did that actually mean in practice?
Well, what's really fascinating and tragic is how her physical condition led to this complete social and spiritual exile. To get it, you have to understand the purity laws, the Mosaic laws, which were central to Jewish life then. Unclean wasn't about being literally dirty or morally bad. It was a ritual status, anything linked to loss of life or bodily discharges, disease, death. These things made a person ritually impure, separate from God's holiness in their view.
So it wasn't personal judgment, but it had devastating personal consequences.
Absolutely devastating. The source says everything she touched became defiled. Think about that. Not just her, but anything or anyone she touched became unclean too.
Oh, wow.
So the practical impact, huge. She couldn't go to the temple, couldn't participate in community worship, a massive part of identity back then. She couldn't be hugged, couldn't be touched. Imagine 12 years without physical comfort, without a simple hug. She couldn't belong, that's what the source says. Her very presence was seen as a source of contamination. So she was pushed to the absolute fringes of society, an outcast in every sense. It wasn't just loneliness, it was like an existential vacuum enforced by religion and society.
It's hard to even comprehend that level of suffering. Physical, social, spiritual isolation all at once. But, and this is where it gets really interesting, the narrative doesn't just leave her there crushed by pain. The source hints at something. Well, something unexpected about the pain itself.
Yeah, if you step back and look at the bigger picture, the narrative seems to suggest there's this powerful paradox. It's like pain doesn't cancel faith, it awakens it.
How does that work?
Yeah.
How can that level of suffering possibly lead to faith instead of just utter despair?
That's the crucial question, isn't it? For many, you'd expect complete withdrawal, a spirit just totally broken. But maybe for her, the suffering did something else. It stripped away everything superficial. Think of like all the things we rely on, social status, comfort, money, human solutions. Her illness took all of that away bit by bit.
Right. The doctors failed, the money ran out, society rejected her.
Exactly. So when everything external fails, you're forced to look inward, or maybe upward. It's not that the pain magically created faith out of nothing, perhaps, but it seems it revealed it, or maybe honed it, like pressure forming a diamond.
So it cleared away all the other options.
It seems like it eliminated every other possibility, forcing this incredibly intense, singular focus on the one potential answer that was outside human ability. That's the awakening. When every single other door is slammed shut, the idea of the divine isn't just one option among many. it becomes the only option. It focuses your belief like a laser.
So after 12 years of this agony, this isolation, this decline, somehow, against all odds, a little spark of hope appears. The source says, when she heard about Jesus, just that simple phrase.
Yeah.
But for her, in her situation, hearing must have been a huge deal.
Oh, absolutely. It wasn't just idle gossip filtering through. We don't know exactly how she heard whispers, maybe, stories passed along, maybe overhearing people from a distance. But however it happened, it wasn't just information. It was like a lifeline tossed into her isolation.
It implies she was still listening, still somehow open, despite everything.
Yes. It implies that even in that state, she hadn't completely given up. She was still seeking, still holding on to some tiny flicker of hope that everyone else had probably tried to extinguish. And just hearing about this Jesus, the stories of healings, his compassion for outcasts that must have resonated so deeply, it clearly stirred something within her, a kind of courage she maybe didn't even know she had. It was a conscious choice, it seems, to lean into that whisper of hope instead of just giving in.
And that hope, fragile as it must have been, it fuels this incredibly bold move, an act that just shattered all the rules governing her life. Mark's gospel tells us she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak.
Yeah.
Because she thought, if I just touch his clothes, I will be healed. Now, this wasn't just bumping into him, was it?
Not at all.
The risk she took was enormous. She shouldn't have even been in that crowd. She was actively breaking serious rules just by being there. What drove her past that fear?
Well, it raises that question, doesn't it? What level of internal conviction, what sheer desperation makes you defy years of being told you're untouchable, defy the real danger of being caught?
The consequences could have been severe. Public shame, punishment.
Exactly. Pushing through a crowd, weak as she likely was, knowing that technically, ritually, she was defiling everyone she brushed past. Just imagine the nerve that took. Her desperation had to be so profound, it just overpowered the fear, the shame, the physical weakness.
And that thought, if I just touch his clothes, I will be healed. So simple, but so powerful.
Incredibly powerful. It wasn't some complicated theological argument she'd worked out. It was this singular, focused belief, a certainty that just cut through everything else. That conviction must have been strong enough to override 12 years of negative experiences, 12 years of getting worse, 12 years of being condemned by society. It wasn't logic, it was pure, raw faith.
And the way she did it is also striking. The source points out, she didn't scream, she didn't beg, she just reached. What does that quietness tell us about her faith? It wasn't for show, was it?
No, not at all. What's fascinating there is the economy of effort, you could say, and the humility. She wasn't trying to get attention or approval from the crowd, or even necessarily trying to get Jesus's attention directly at that moment.
It's just the healing.
Just the healing, that was her sole focus. The narrative says, one touch. That's all she had the strength left to give, and it was enough. Such a powerful image. It suggests that, huge results don't always need huge gestures or loud prayers.
Right.
Sometimes, like the source mentions later, a whispered prayer, a weak hand, reaching out with genuine, desperate, focused faith, that can be incredibly powerful. It was this intensely private act of belief happening right there in public, driven by an inner conviction so strong it just overcame everything else. It speaks to the authenticity of it. It wasn't about performance. It was about connection.
A connection that proved instantly effective. So she makes this quiet, incredibly brave reach.
Yeah.
And then the change is immediate. Mark 5.29, immediately her bleeding stopped. Just like that.
Instantly. No gradual improvement, no waiting period.
Sudden. Complete, undeniable.
Absolutely. The immediacy is key. It leaves no room for doubt, no, maybe it was getting better anyway. 12 years of nonstop suffering just ceased. In that single moment, it highlights the sheer power involved. Can you imagine the shock, the relief, the sudden feeling of wellness after 12 years of constant distress? It must have been staggering. More than just physical.
And then there's Jesus's reaction. In this massive, chaotic crowd, people surely bumping into him left and right, he feels her touch. Specifically, Mark 5:30 says he realized that power had gone out from him.
Yeah.
What's going on there? How did her touch stand out?
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. It suggests a unique connection, doesn't it? Something beyond just physical contact.
Yeah.
And zooming out, the source draws this crucial distinction. The crowd touched him, but only one pulled heaven down. That implies it wasn't about just being near him or accidentally brushing against him. It was about the intent, the nature of her touch.
So like an electrical circuit, the power is there, but it needs something to connect it.
That's a great analogy. The crowd's touch was maybe passive, incidental, curiosity maybe, or just the crush of people. But her touch was different. It was deliberate, charged with desperate hope, with that singular belief. It actively drew on the power. It's like the difference between standing in the rain getting passively wet and intentionally putting out a bucket to collect the rain. Her touch was intentional. It engaged the divine power through faith.
It shows faith isn't passive observation then, it's active.
Exactly. It's an active force.
And the source really hammers this home. Her healing didn't come from her hand. It came from her faith. So it wasn't about the cloak having magic powers or anything like that.
No, not at all. This raises that important question about our role, human agency, in receiving help, right?
Right.
The healing is explicitly linked to her faith. Not the touch alone, not the fabric. It's faith that reaches, draws power. It suggests this kind of reciprocal thing where belief is maybe a prerequisite for the transformation to happen.
So the cloak was just the focus point.
Precisely. The point of contact for her faith. The target for all that desperation and belief, she'd focus like a laser beam. Her faith was the live connection, the channel. It tells us that while divine power might be constant, available, activating it often takes that deliberate human act of belief, of trust, of reaching out.
It's about where you direct that hope, maybe.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Okay, so the physical healing is instantaneous, miraculous. But the story doesn't end there. There's this other restoration that happens, equally profound. Jesus stops, realizes power left him, and asks who touched him. Imagine that scene, the crowd, the question, and her, knowing she has to step forward after 12 years of hiding. The source says she came forward filled with fear and trembling to tell the whole truth. That must have been terrifying.
Absolutely terrifying. Remember, she lived as an outcast, untouchable. To suddenly be the center of attention, admitting she broke the rules by being there, by touching him, even after being healed, the fear must have been immense.
Fear of what? Condemnation? Maybe losing the healing?
Perhaps. Fear of judgment, fear of being shamed publicly. But she still came forward. She told the truth. That speaks volumes, doesn't it? It wasn't just about getting fixed physically and sneaking away. It was about acknowledging the source, maybe starting that process of complete restoration, social, spiritual too, reclaiming her story.
And then comes the moment that the source really emphasizes as pivotal for her identity. Jesus speaks to her directly. And the source highlights this. This is the only time in Scripture Jesus calls someone daughter. He says, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." Why is that word daughter so incredibly significant for her given everything she'd been through?
Oh, it's almost impossible to overstate the significance. What's truly profound there is that shift from unclean, unwelcome, outcast to daughter, called that by him.
Yeah.
If we look at the bigger picture, the physical healing was amazing, life-changing, no doubt. But restoring her identity, giving her back her belonging, her acceptance, you could argue that was even deeper, more complete.
What did daughter signify in that context?
In that society, being called daughter by someone respected, like Jesus wasn't just a nice word, it was a powerful act of affirmation. Intimate welcome, it meant protection, acceptance, family connection, a place.
She wasn't just a miracle case study anymore.
Exactly. She was rehumanized, reintegrated, given back her dignity, her place, her name, a relationship that society and her illness had stolen for 12 years. The physical healing let her re-enter society. But being called daughter, that redefined her worth. It repaired her shattered sense of self. It granted her belonging. It was a total restoration, body, personhood, place in the community, maybe even a new kind of family.
Oh, what an incredible journey. From that rock bottom of desperation and isolation through this incredibly risky, quiet act of faith to instant physical healing, and then this profound restoration of who she is. It's a 2,000-year-old story, but let's bring it forward. What does it mean for us, for you listening right now? Why does this story still hit so hard?
Well, that really raises a crucial question for all of us, doesn't it? How many people today, right now, still feel forgotten, isolated, maybe dirty or unworthy in some way, even if it's not physical bleeding?
Yeah, the parallels are definitely there.
Her struggle, that ancient struggle with chronic pain and being an outcast, it echoes in so many modern experiences. Think about invisible illnesses, chronic pain people deal with that others dismiss, mental health challenges that create deep isolation, stigmas around addiction, poverty, just being different.
Feeling like you don't belong.
Feeling like you don't belong, feeling unclean metaphorically, unworthy of connection, maybe feeling like your presence somehow taints things for others. And maybe, like her, you've tried everything, therapy, doctors, self-help, advice, only to feel like you're getting worse, that nothing works for you.
That feeling of being rejected, unseen, unwelcome. It's timeless, isn't it?
It really is. It transcends the specific details of her condition.
Yeah.
Suffering and feeling unworthy, sadly, seem to be part of the human package sometimes.
And the source connects this directly to today with that verse from Hebrews. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. How does that tie it all together for us now?
Well, what's so powerful about that verse in this context is the idea that the compassion, the power we see in her story, it's not locked in the past. It's still available, still active.
So the same Jesus is still accessible.
That's what the narrative asserts. Jesus is still walking by, it suggests. And if you reach for him, even with weak hands, even with whispered prayers, his power still responds to faith. It transforms the story from just a historical event into an ongoing reality, potentially. That unchanging nature means the same compassion, the same power, the same willingness to meet individual faith is there for you now, whatever you're facing.
So it's not about how strong you are or how perfect your prayer is.
It seems not. According to this perspective, it's not about the strength of your reach or the eloquence or even how bad your suffering is compared to others. What matters, it seems, is the direction of your reach, that focused intent. Turning towards hope, directing your belief, however small it feels. It's this message that no matter how long you've suffered, how invisible or unworthy you feel, that source of healing, of restoration, is still profoundly accessible through that deliberate act of faith.
We've really taken a deep dive today, haven't we, into this incredibly powerful story. How one woman's, audacious, quiet faith didn't just heal her body, but completely restored her place in the world. It's just such a testament to the idea that sometimes, the quietest acts of belief can trigger the biggest transformations. Turning 12 years of pain into this single moment of change, from being totally unseen, unwelcome to being called daughter, it just highlights that power of a determined reach rooted in faith, a power that, as we've discussed, seems to echo right down to today.
Absolutely. Her story is just marked by this incredibly tenacious faith, isn't it? The faith that it needed both huge vulnerability and profound courage to reach out from that place of deep suffering, total isolation. And maybe this raises an important question for you listening right now. What does reaching actually look like in your own life? Especially maybe when you feel the most unseen or unheard or unworthy. And how might that simple, focused act of reaching, whether it's a quiet whisper or maybe a desperate gesture, how might that open up pathways to healing, to belonging that you hadn't even imagined were possible?
That is definitely a powerful thought to sit with. A question worth carrying with you after this deep dive ends. We really hope this exploration has sparked some fresh perspectives, maybe a few aha moments for you to take away. Please join us next time for another deep dive as we continue exploring the insights hidden within some of the world's most compelling stories.